CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear warfare. The need to defend against such threats has fluctuated over the decades. Sadly today, it's increasingly real. In 2002, at a summit in Prague, NATO's CBRN Defence Battalion was born. A high-readiness multinational force giving NATO allies a credible CBRN capability. Shortly after, Canada offered to host an annual training exercise using live agents to prepare the battalion in the best possible way. 20 years since the very first instance of exercise precise response, we're heading for Alberta to find out how troops prepare to defend against an invisible enemy. We fly to Calgary.
Welcome to Calgary, the local time is 12:45.
Then drive 3 hours to Suffield in southwestern Alberta, home to all things CBRN in Canada. The training area on the prairie is huge. At 2,800 square kilometres, it's larger than Luxembourg and flat as far as the eye can see. It's one of the few places in the world that troops can practice using live chemical, biological and radiological agents. The UK can do it at DSTL, Porton Down, although it's hugely expensive. But many NATO countries have no such facility. This exercise is crucial. The Canadian Forces base in Suffield is inspected by the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and approved to make and hold agents to use for training. And of course, this is all about defence.
So these simple traffic cones indicate something really important on this exercise. This side of the cones is the safe area, but beyond them is what's known as the hot zone, and that's where they're using a live agent to train with. Our troops have one fundamental mission here. They need to go beyond the cones into the hot zone, collect a sample and bring it back to the labs for analysis without contaminating either themselves or anything around them.
The sooner the sample can be analysed by the labs, the sooner the threat can be established, the area made safe, and the fighting troops continue the battle without being inhibited by cumbersome CBRN kit. 2-8 Engineer Regiment, which includes 7-7 Field Squadron, are the CBRN specialists in the British Army, a tiny but crucial niche. Each day of the exercise is packed with scenarios, the orders coming in the night before. This year, for the first time, the British are leading one of the 3 task forces, Task Force Buffalo, jointly with the US.
Human Intelligence reports a rad source on site. Target C9, which is located right here.
We're working with several nations, so we've got Belgium, Canada, Netherlands, Germany and Italy and the UK underneath our task force headquarters.
Decisive phase then is Task Force Buffalo, conduct CBRN recce to confirm presence of CBRN hazards.
We've got a number of CBRN tasks, so we've got a chemical lab to look into, radiation area to recce, and then a biological lab to explore as well. And on top of that, we've got an EOD threat, which we've got a pair of EOD operators from the Netherlands to exploit that activity.
EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, brings another layer of complexity to a CBRN situation if, for example, the troops are faced with a dirty bomb. First thing to do each morning is prepare their kit.
Talk me through what's in the trolley.
So this is basically what we call a chem setup. So it's a chemical threat. In here we've got what we would use downrange on a chemical task. So this item here, that's the first offender to sort of detect what a chemical is. And then we've got this one, which is sort of similar, except if we've got more time, we can put a little sample on there. This is the true defender, so it'll give a more accurate reading of what the chemical is. This is like a personal item, a handy tool that we'd use just to keep an eye on how long we've been downrange, just to actually stopwatch.
There's also dozens of sets of gloves for constant glove changes, envelopes, plastic bags and cable ties to carefully seal samples. When all the agent has been planted, the hot zone goes live. The team going down range today consists of Sapper Johnny Doige and Corporal Ollie Hickmott. Johnny, with the yellow tape around his wrists, will be the downrange commander. His job is to direct Ollie. Ollie is what's known as the dirty person, or the sampler. He is the one who will be in contact with the agent itself. But before they enter the hot zone, there's one thing all troops must do: pay a visit to something affectionately known as the banana hut.
This is the banana hut. It may look like a horse box. It kind of is a horse box, but let me show you what this is for. So this is Connor, banana hut guy. Hi, Connor.
Hi.
Is it all right to go in?
Yeah,
yep.
let's go in.
Okay, so come in. Now then, shut the door. In here, there's an overwhelming smell of banana. Okay, what this trailer box is for, once all the troops have kitted out in their CBRN kit, they come in here with Connor. He sprays a bunch of this stuff, which is banana spray. It's a harmless substance, but it smells like banana. And then he makes them go through this, shake your head from side to side, nod your head, bend at the waist. And all of this is just to check that their PPE, their protective gear, is working. If at any point during that they smell banana, they know that there's a problem with their suit and they cannot go into what they call the hot zone, which is where the live agent is.
Roger, 10 Charlie, out.
Task Forces is UK, message over.
Finally, it's time to cross the line into the hot zone.
Let's go.
You're sort of like a military site in this, it's a bit weird.
So when it's live agent, you're more curious and careful about your drills. So you're paying more attention, making sure you're staying clean as possible.
You do get trained really well for all the kit that we get given.
And how difficult is it operating in that kit?
In the suit in this heat, it is pretty grim. It's reached up to 40 degrees out here.
You can't breathe, your breathing feels different, you feel sweaty, and you lose a lot of dexterity in your hands because the amount of gloves we wear.
Each country has requested specific training elements to be included. The Canadian scenario team work these in, constantly throwing curveballs into the mix to prepare the troops for any eventuality.
During the middle 3 days, we had the scenarios, they were given the orders, no power. But when they show up and there's no power, that means no lights. So when they open the door and it is pitch black, then they're scrambling to find a little flashlight, or they're using their iPad or whatever. Some of the rad sites will have larger sealed sources masking less lower strength sealed sources. So when you go in and you find the big one, they can shield it and make that site safe. But all of a sudden there's another source that pops up in another location, and if there happens to be unsealed material there, they may be getting contaminated and they're not even aware that that's happening.
After just over an hour on the sweltering prairie, Ollie and Johnny return with their sample. They're decontaminated and temperature checked.
How are you?
Bit hot, but it was good. Basically just saw everything we needed to do and just cracked on with it, and then got back as quickly as possible.
So scenario today, we had a down drone which was carrying a dispersal device, so sulfur mustard. From there, it was a case of one swab, confirm it, and then package it, and then come straight back to the decomp.
The sample is packaged as it would be on operations, to be transported by plane if needs be. But here on exercise, lab facilities are close by. Germany run the radiology lab, the US and Canada in charge of chemical, and for biological samples, it's over to Norway. They're not able to train with live agent at home, and the 6-strong team of scientists are very proud to provide the facility for the NATO force.
Explain to me what happens on a daily basis here.
Right, so the specialist will come up to our lab with their samples.
Hi, how are you?
We'll do an intake here where we write down all the information that they have.
What was your case ID, please?
All the sites that they've seen, if they've been in a crash or a lab or anything. We'll have a walkthrough of all their samples.
Okay, so there's a liquid inside the vial?
Yes.
All right.
We'll do the processing sheets to make sure that chain of custody is in order. Then we'll walk them back here to the side of the lab. There's a hatch on the wall, and that's where the samples are transferred in. So this is the clean internal entry of the lab. The samples will pass through the hatch and into what's called a glove box. So that's a biocontainment chamber to make sure both that we don't spread around any possible agents or contamination, and to protect the scientists and the soldiers that work in the lab. This team is specialised to take on the wide variety that you find in any bioscenarios, from naturally occurring diseases to terrorist outbreaks. So there's anthrax, we handle ricin, botulinum toxins. What is written on the wall? So this is some of the previous cases. So what you see is a sort of a run through of what kinds of tests or what assessments that the lab has done. As a small unit from a very small country, it's a massive honour to be able to be the designated biolab for such an important exercise for NATO.
The sample delivered, their mission is complete. But what happens if there's a casualty downrange, combat, an explosion or illness? When your patient is in full CBRN and not yet decontaminated, treating them becomes a huge challenge.
So what you see here is a multinational medical decon line. In case of a CBRN exposure, we have to take into account that we will have a high number of casualties. And these casualties, on the one hand, are exposed to a CBRN threat, and on the battlefield they might also suffer trauma. So first of all, what we have right here is we have this point for triage. So you see this patient, you virtually can't see anything. The only thing we have is the pupils at the eyes. And what we then do, we remove a part of the butyl rubber glove and add a finger pulse oximeter. So we just know the heart frequency of the patient, and we know the oxygen saturation. That's a very important parameter. Here we decide if we have limited capacities or a high number of patients who might be prioritized. Then we just move into this decon line here. We can do additional treatment here. We can add auto-injectors as antidotes. We can stop massive hemorrhage, which might be life-threatening. And we do a first decon here with RSDL as decon. We then move into here. We have here documentation right here. We then move the patient in over here, and that's where the medical play takes place. So what we do, we call that expose to treat. We open the protective garment, remove the mask, and then secure an airway here.
How much more difficult is all of this whilst in CBRN gear?
So just providing an IV line is already hard to provide here. And we have the big risk of cross-contamination. So first, of course, we have to do life-saving measures for the patient, but we then have to think about that he is also still exposed to the CBRN agent. If we do a long and thorough decon, we have a very clean but a very dead patient. So that's why we start with life-saving measures and then do the decon afterwards. And that's mainly the decision of the physician who is here now in this line.
Throughout the exercise, safety staff watch on intently, keeping checks on things that become contaminated. Anything that comes in contact with chemical agent is incinerated. Anything that touches biological agent is washed in an autoclave, effectively a giant pressure cooker. And things affected by radiation are quarantined until enough nuclei have decayed to bring them down to safe levels of background radiation.
To be honest, it's been a great training serial. CBRN is quite a niche capability within defence. So being able to see what the other nations are doing and what equipment they're using particularly is quite a key for us. I think it's almost like a forgotten art on how we operate in a CBRN environment. So we need to be on top of that.
I don't think people know very much about CBRN, just basically what they see in the movies and potentially, you know, some of the things through history. Chernobyl, Fukushima, the anthrax letters after 9/11, everything changes so quickly. You know, depending on what our adversaries are working on and what their intents are, we have to be ready for any eventuality.
Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.